before we get into this at all, first and foremost, thank you for your service.
I love my job.
Yeah, man. And thank you to everybody who's protecting and serving this country. I think it's obviously something that's not said nearly enough. And right now at a time where I think it can't be said enough because of what we're going through. And, I sent you over some talking points of some things that I wanted to discuss. But I think one thing prior to that you had shared on your social, and it kind of leads into what I just said, was around the story of Sergeant Roy Benavides. And
what a badass.
Man, I looked into that after I saw what you posted. And I mean, aside from just being an extremely inspirational person and story, the perspective that you can gain from reading something like that. And I think we live in a time where people are so naive and maybe even ignorant to what's happening minute by minute, day by day, year by year in the background that they don't hear about at all, but allows them to hop on Twitter or social media and share opinions that, are not necessarily in line with how you or I or maybe others think as well. And I just think it's so important to highlight that because there's people dying every day for our freedoms. And we take that way too much for granted.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Fortunately, we live in a place where I don't think we're ever going to have a shortage of brave, courageous young men and women that are going to step up and answer the call. That's sad, but it's also pretty powerful and pretty remarkable that we live in a place where we have such brave patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think it's such a pivotal time coming up with an election. And you had mentioned in a podcast I'd heard about JP Sears. And, I'm a big fan of JP and everything, the way that he kind of gets his message out there in a consumable way that's kind of funny and nonchalant, but that really touches on important subjects and whatnot. And, I don't know how well you know him and kind of what he's been dealing with, but curious as your thoughts on where censorship is going and, how do we combat that on a daily basis?
How do we combat it?
Yeah.
We vote. The direction that we're going censorship wise is if we're living in an Orwellian world. Like we're in 1984 and it's really, I never thought in my lifetime it would have happened so fast where a perspective, an opinion, a point of view could be so effectively be silenced. With the dawn of the internet, I was just like, oh, this is beautiful. For the first time ever, we're going to be able to truly be free to access information that is unbiased and that is objective. And how naive of me, right? Like the forefathers, they knew that humans would always mess it up. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely what's happened. Where you can't even use a search engine. You can't even use Google and not be aware that the information that you're receiving is biased. I can't go to Wikipedia without understanding that it's been curated specifically for a specific perspective, let alone the social media companies from Instagram to Facebook to Twitter to TikTok, Snapchat, all of them curating information. And that's not only, I would say it's a dangerous precedent, but it's not a precedent because it has been done before. It has been done countless times. Mm-hmm. The communists did it, the fascists did it, and they did it very effectively, and they still do it to this day. And the fact that we have, I realize they're private companies, but that is the most accessible form of communication to the entire population of the United States. Mm-hmm. And with that being manipulated and curated, it is it's time for change. They have to be held accountable.
Yeah, I mean, almost kind of a bait and switch, right? It's like Facebook was you had to have a ed.edu domain name on your email address to initially sign up for it. And all these college age kids, young professionals kind of signing up. And now, obviously, it's completely done a 180 on that. Obviously, voting, the most important thing we can do. But is there a problem? And I guess where I look at this and wonder if we can dig out from underneath it is so many of these people are coming into leadership positions at companies like, whatever, these social media organizations, and they've been indoctrinated through the educational systems that they're a part of into a certain way and belief. And so aside from what we can legislatively get through from voting and laws, there's kind of a mindset that's brewing inside of education, so to speak, that are the future leaders who are going to make the decisions on what should or shouldn't be shown and curated.
Yeah. Um, teachers unions and um, from accredited colleges to tenured professors, if you were going to try and find a group that had been more rooted in Marxism, I don't think you could find a group more Marxist than that group. And they're the ones that are teaching and structurally organizing how our young are going to be educated, and that's frightening. The KGB in the 60s and 70s said that they were going to infiltrate our education system and do exactly what has happened, which is imparted Lenin's ideas to the faculty, and then the faculty, of course, then puts it on the students. And we have to have a hard reset, whether that's every single tenured professor takes a walk. I don't care how it happens, but there has to be a complete full reset where we can have opposing viewpoints. And I mean, the point of education is it is a controlled environment for ideas to flourish. Any idea, good ideas, bad ideas, right-wing ideas, left-wing ideas, engineering ideas, creative, technological ideas. And right now, if those ideas don't fit a certain narrative, they're squashed. And what a horrific environment that has been created by current university faculty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm a big analogy person. Maybe because I'm not smart, and so I have to kind of simple things down a little bit. But I grew up next to a reservoir with a fairly large dam that was upstream from a small community of like 10,000 people. And I remember seeing divers that would go in and check the structural integrity of a dam. And they were ruthless, right? They're ruthlessly looking for any crack in that foundation, which could be deemed hazardous to the people who live downstream. And when they find those cracks, they identify them, and then they try to find solutions to fix them. And I feel like we don't have that now. We have divers that are going down and ruthlessly looking for these cracks and then taking jackhammers and busting it open even further, because at the end of the day, they want the dam to break. They want that town to be destroyed and wiped clean for their own ideas, it seems. And that, it's very chilling in a lot of cases when you see that. So.
Yeah, I mean, your analogy is every Marxist revolution that's ever happened in the past 70 years. Mm-hmm. And the village dies. Like, historically, we know how that story ends, because you can open a history book. Well, you can open a history book right now. Don't try to Google it, because most of those have already been wiped clean. Yep. I'm not joking. Like,
no,
do you know how difficult it is to see real numbers that happened post Leninism? Like, it's astonishing how effectively they have hidden the millions and tens of millions of people that perished at the hands of Marxists. So it is a great analogy, and you can reference the past 70 years to see that in factual historical examples. Mm-hmm. It's a bummer.
Yeah, no, it is. But I don't want to be too negative. I mean, I am optimistic, and I think the election itself could be a good changing point. I think getting past this kind of tipping point of everybody's emotions and kudos to you for putting the pressure on and bringing up the things that you do. I mean, I don't know if we'll get to see this debate that you kind of threw out into the air, but man, would that be fucking awesome.
I was so surprised to see such stark from the Democratic Party specifically, like the deep indoctrinated from lobbyists to public organizers to even campaign officials, and then of course the media immediately try and squash the idea. And that was the most telling thing about the whole idea. The concept of having a moderator who has an inquisitive mind, like Joe is a pretty smart guy, but whatever his faults are, one of them you could never doubt that he wants to know more, and he asks the questions that I think most people want to know the answers to from any given guest. And in the podcast world, it creates opportunity for long form conversations, and this long form conversation in problems that we're facing with race and with the economy and with use of force with police officers, those are not soundbite length conversations. Those are things that have to be, they're nuanced, they're complex, and you have to get to the root of some things. So the idea of having, the president and former vice president sit down and talk about their ideas, and I think that just being able to hear two different ideas, and then we get to make the decision about which one of those ideas we can stand behind and which one of those ideas make the most sense. The current debate forum and the model for how presidents have been debating has been broken for centuries, or for at least decades. I argue that it has become a popularity contest in the past 100 years. And I want, the point of a debate is to put ideas through a refiner's fire, and we get to pick which ideas hold true to the pressure of the refiner's fire. But now it's just like I go up there and hopefully somebody gets that "I got you" moment, and like maybe somebody's tie looked better, or the audience applauded better for something, or the light looked better, or the camera angle was better, or like insert whatever crap is orchestrated by the host. It's not a real debate. And that's what I want. I just want real information. I don't even know what Biden's running on. Like, I don't even know his platform. Do you have any idea?
I don't. And I had an argument actually the last show that I did with someone where I just said, it's the question that a lot of people are asking, but can you tell me why Joe Biden, without giving me anything negative about Trump? Because as somebody who isn't voting for Joe Biden, I would love to know if maybe I'm missing something. And I'm confused at somebody who's been in politics for 40 years, that there's a lot of lifelong politicians who have the same kind of on paper record that Joe Biden has. I would think that somebody that got lifted to nominee of Democratic candidate would have some glaring success stories tied to their name that he'd be eager to share in long form. And because the guy that I asked, he said, I don't really know what he stands for. All I care about is character. Character, obviously, I think it's extremely important, but character can be manipulated. And I personally don't know Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and I've seen sound bites and things from both of them. But character can be manipulated based on where you're listening to things. And the record of somebody is pretty black and white. And so that's where I think we should be starting, is the record. Because that's what affects you and I on a daily basis. What are you going to do to my taxes? What are you going to do to schooling, healthcare? Those are the things that are important. And yeah, I would love for somebody to be a great stand-up guy that's not rude and moral, but at the end of the day, we have to look at this with a wider lens and say what's important and impacting our civilization the most.
Yeah, I think that's very intuitive and insightful of you. I can say I'm moral, right? Like, hey, I'm the most moral person you've ever met. But the only way that you can judge my integrity are by my actions. And in the political world, your actions are your record, the things that you have done, the things that you voted on, the accomplishments that you've made in the public sector, And I don't know what those are for Joe Biden. And more importantly, I don't even know what he says he's going to do for the next 4 years if he were to be elected in November. And, you know, we're a couple of months away from the election, and to have a candidate, and I'm interested, like I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very difficult to try and discern what he's going to do. You know, like Trump, I know what judges he's going to appoint. I know what his tax plan is going to look like. I know what his foreign policy looks like. He's literally like broadcasted it, of course, on Twitter. I wish somebody would take his phone away from him. But I would like to know, maybe give Joe Biden a phone. You know, like I know he has a Twitter account. Could you hand him a phone and have him maybe tweet to the American people what he plans on doing for the next 4 years? I would like to know.
Yeah, no. It's a great.
Or put him back in the basement.
It's a great point, man. You know, you had mentioned earlier you saw Pittsburgh in the news, and I wasn't sure if you had seen, there was a couple of demonstrations recently, and people were sitting outside kind of enjoying their outdoor lunch or early dinner, and some protests came through, and people were walking up to tables and grabbing plates and smashing food and drinking beer. And you know, there's just,
so don't call that a protest.
That's
what you just described. Yeah, that's rioting,
mm-hmm.
and that's a crime.
That's
so I think we very quickly have to call a spade, right? Like, we know the English language. I know what protesting is, and I fully 100% endorse it, and I support it, and I'll stand shoulder to shoulder protecting people so that they can protest. I've obviously deployed countless times so that you have the right to your First Amendment to assemble and freedom of speech and to protest. But if you start breaking the law, you're not protesting. There's no form of protest. As a matter of fact, what do I have right here? It's do you need one of these?
Is that your Constitution?
Oh, I have a stack of them.
Where are those?
Yeah,
at?
anytime. Yeah. But this is my nice one.
Okay.
That I keep at my desk here. So anytime somebody needs to Declaration of Independence, what a beautiful document. Yes. Here we go. Such a beautiful thing. Have you ever read this entire thing?
Not front to back, no.
Oh, you know what? You're gonna have to send me your address, because this needs to get sent to you pretty lickety split. At no point in Article 1 does it say that you can go and pick up a business's stuff and smash it. Does it say that you can walk up to somebody that is being a patron and conducting commerce and steal their stuff, or burn it, or smash it, or assault them? It says that you can peacefully protest and that you can peacefully assemble. That's what it says. So if you stop doing those things, you're no longer afforded the freedoms that are enumerated in the Constitution. So you can zip it, put your hands behind your back, and be arrested for violating the law. Mm-hmm. But you were saying about the rioters in Pennsylvania. Continue.
Yeah, no. It, you know, what I was thinking was, with all of that happening, you know, you made a point that you wouldn't be caught dead in a place like that in the first place, kind of being aware of what's happening in and around a city. But, you know, assuming you're sitting out in an area like that, I mean, the situational awareness that needs to be had, and self-control. And I mean, it's crazy that even a year ago, so many people who just kind of go about their lives and don't have a whole lot of awareness, but are able to skate by because we live in a very peaceful place in most cases. Right.
Yeah.
But you see a lot of people now who are caught completely off guard with no ability to protect themselves, to get themselves out of those situations. And the level of vigilance that needs to kind of start taking place now. And who knows? I mean, if that's going to get worse in the short term before it gets much better. I know you do a lot in that space, and it's something that I think about a lot. And I have some people in my life who are always harping on me, getting me to, pay attention to those things, back your car in, like all these little things that, as a younger version of myself, I thought were excessive and a little nutty. As I've become an adult and seen what's happening around me, I've realized the importance, and that, you can't ever be prepared enough, I guess.
No, you can't. Yeah. It is definitely going to get worse. I would like to say it's going to get worse before it gets better, but I don't know when it's going to get better. It's not going to get better from now until November, and then it's not going to get better after November. And even if Joe Biden were elected, just, we can use Portland, for example. You cannot find a mayor that is further to the left than the current Portland mayor. And they're going to his house and trying to set it on fire. They're firebombing the mayor of Portland's house because he is not woke enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't ever appease the mob. There's nothing that you can do. And Joe Biden being elected is not going to appease a Marxist mob. They will want to break down and tear down absolutely everything that this document stood for.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever means necessary, whether it's not going through the appropriate means of adding or subtracting to the Constitution, or putting in a justice that's going to see the Constitution the light that they want to. They will literally do what they're doing now, which is burning and tearing things down, until they've erased all of the things that they don't like about this culture, this society, and this government.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it happens so fast. The work that it takes to build it up is erased rather quickly.
Yep.
Done by the wrong people.
Yeah.
So how much of that? So I know you have Sheepdog Response, which you have multiple levels of kind of situational awareness and kind of building the skills that are necessary for people to be prepared in these situations. How much of that is changing based on the current circumstances, or are you adjusting kind of based on what's happening?
Yeah, the tactical training points, the TTPs, our POI, so our points of instruction, are always, it's a fluid world that's rapidly evolving. So we adjust how we're teaching and what we're teaching, but really, like, the fundamentals don't change. If you're going to go and walk into a UFC fight, you have to understand the fundamentals of grappling, the fundamentals of striking, the kind of cornerstones of different styles of martial arts. Mm-hmm. And with that, you're going to have this graduated version, this, superior person that just knowing the basics. It's the same thing with shooting. You have to know the fundamentals of marksmanship before I can show you how to draw from a concealed carry. You have to know how to basically hold the gun, how to squeeze the trigger, how to have sight picture and sight alignment. And then there's lots of additional techniques. Well, with situational awareness, being at the finish line of the Boston Marathon and trying to ID somebody wearing a hoodie that's dropping a backpack that has a pressure cooker in it filled with explosives, that is different than what we're dealing with now. Is how do you identify what is going to be a swelling of people, like a mob, that can descend onto a specific area pretty rapidly because they're very organized. And so the fundamentals of situational awareness are still very straightforward. We have a real clear step-by-step. We try to change the way that you look at the world, and we have these acronyms from ACOCA to GRIN to METTC. Like with GRIN, you have this global view. So I understand right now we're in this big anti-racism movement that is throughout the whole entire world. It's in the Middle East. We have to recognize what's happening in Hong Kong. We know what's happening in London. And then, it's happening all over Europe. And then regional. So here in the United States, the biggest thing is the BLM movement with Antifa. And then kind of the immediate area. So in my city, what are the things that are happening? And then near, super close, that directly affect me. What are those things? So that like macro to micro, we have steps of the way that you look at things. The mind has a bandwidth, and I can only see so much stuff at one time. So the things that aren't, we teach you how to group and batch things that you don't need to worry about. Like an 80-year-old white woman that is having a cup of tea at a restaurant. I can go ahead and remove her from my mind as a potential threat, right? But that group of kids between 20 and 23 years old, or 20 and 30 years old, that are all wearing black pants, black sweatshirts, they have black masks on, and some of them have signs, and they're all beginning to congregate at this area. Okay, I'm gonna take a portion of my mind, and I'm gonna go ahead and recognize that is a potential threat. So that's like how I know that sounds kind of harsh, but we have to teach how to use your mind effectively and efficiently to be able to get more information and be able to get rid of the things you don't need to use your bandwidth on, and be able to focus on the things that you need your bandwidth for.
Well, and isn't that where the blurred line goes, where then, oh, you're racist, or you're whatever, because you're discriminating, or you're grouping people based on your observations. I mean, I would say that's what we've done our whole lives, right? I mean, from the beginning of civilization, we're looking at our surroundings, and you're understanding what your threat levels are based on what you see. And I think it's ignorant to think that that's not happening. And if you aren't looking around and realizing that there's perceived dangers of different levels based on different characteristics of what you're seeing, then you're in a world of trouble.
Yeah, it's you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not tracking what's happening around you. And there's no more efficient way to do it than batching and grouping. I know the cancel culture is like, you can't even know my gender, because I get to choose that. That's fine. You get to do that for you, but I also get to group and identify whoever I want, however I want, in whatever category I want, that is going to protect me and mine.
Yeah.
Like whatever your belief system is, that you don't get to project that onto me, because like I have my own belief system. And when it comes to like the protection of my family, you have no say in what my belief system is.
No, it's so true. Now, does a lot of that stuff fall in line and similar with, I know you're big involved in counter human trafficking, and that's something that I've, as a new father, having a 1-year-old, definitely paying a lot more attention to. And I'm up here in Pittsburgh, so I'm kind of right at the Interstate 80 corridor. I'm right at the,
you're in the heart of it,
of a turnpike, a lot of trucks. And we were in Austin this past week, and the thing that I noticed was my phone lit up like 6 times with Amber Alerts. And my wife and I were talking, just, I had some business stuff, and she's kind of out in Austin enjoying some of the things in the city has to offer. And, part of me is like, I know you're paying attention. I know you're aware, but like, you can't be aware enough. And so I imagine there's a lot of overlap to that, but there's probably a lot of differences as well.
No, I mean, the protection of your kids, you're implementing situational awareness. Yeah. And, from the exact same Grana Coca Met TC, it's the same acronyms, and it's the same way of thinking, and I'm just applying it to a different threat. I'm not applying it to a group, a mob that's going to come and flip my table over, pour my beer on my head if I don't pump my fist in the air in solidarity. I'm looking for somebody that's going to walk by and pick up my, I have a little girl that's 11 months and 28 days. She turns 1 year old in 2 days. Like in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, she's prime. Think about that. Prime to be trafficked and to be kidnapped. So you are an idiot, and you're a bad parent, and you are naive if you don't realize that that threat is real. It's disgusting that there are people that I'm trying to recognize pedophilia as a sexual orientation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't even fathom how that could be the case. But then even worse is there's a large group of people that look at people like me and my colleagues that fight human trafficking, and they go, man, that's an obsession. It's a weird obsession. It's probably an unhealthy obsession that this specific group of people are always fretting over. And but what they're trying to do is make us look like the outlier, the group of us that are trying to protect little girls and little boys that are being kidnapped and sex trafficked. And I mean, God bless them that they don't know how big this industry is, but it's not a little thing. We are not an outlier. We are fighting a real gigantic threat that is $1 billion industry that is all over the world, to include the United States. I'm not talking Africa. I'm not talking super poor areas of Asia. I'm talking about where you live,
Yeah.
and where every single urban metropolis is in the country. Real problems.
Yeah. There was somebody that just was arrested a couple weeks ago that was 20 miles north of us. It was a part of a large sting in the Cleveland area. And, that just, to your point, man, is there anything more important than protecting kids? I mean, maybe just the fundamentals of freedom, but I mean, the children are the future. The fact that you would get any type of criticism for that is absolutely disgusting.
You can throw stones at Weinstein. He's disgusting. You can, attack Jeffrey Epstein. He's the devil. His madame should burn in hell for forever. Everybody that hopped on that plane and flew to that island and did whatever they did to those little girls, I hope you find justice. I'm more concerned about the recent immigrant that's living in El Paso that has 3 kids, that's going to be walking into the gas station, convenience store, to grab, a 2% milk for their 5-year-old, to walk out and find all 3 of their kids missing out of their car. Like, that happens daily. I'm not talking plane full of billionaires going to an island. I'm talking about Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm talking about St. Augustine Island, Florida. The largest human trafficking event in American history was the last Super Bowl. And the one before that, the previous Super Bowl. And the one before that, the previous Super Bowl. Like every single year, we reset our own record with the most trafficked girls to be used at a specific time in the United States is just the next big sporting event that's at a big city. Because there's more girls, there's more people, there's more money, there's more opportunity, there's more trafficked girls.
And I'd imagine it's people who come from impoverished communities that don't have the resources to then go looking for the children, or maybe everybody.
No, I mean, they target the ones that don't even make it on the back of a milk carton. Hell, they don't even do that anymore. Think about that for a second. Maria Gonzalez, single mom whose ex-husband is now back on the south side of the border after he was deported, and she's just kind of barely making it by, putting food on the table for her 2, 3, 4 kids. A couple of those kids disappear.
Don't hear a thing about it.
Never. Right? She doesn't even report it because she's scared of being deported.
Do you have an idea, or do we as a nation have an idea of the number of kids in those situations that are trafficked yearly?
Yeah.
I'm going to be blown away, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, tens of thousands.
Man.
Yeah. And it's not going to change. Like, until society changes, like, you can't, how successful was the war on drugs? How'd that work out for us?
Not
no,
so
right?
hard.
Because the consumer is the one that dictates the culture, the consumer, us, the people. If the demand is there, the product will be available because it will be worth something. So we, as a population, as a collective, have to say, this is detestable, this is disgusting, and anybody that does that, they're going to be hung in the street. Like, I don't care what you do, but it has to be so known that there cannot be any doubt about the complete mala and say. I'm just the nature of the act is pure evil. And until a businessman that's traveling to to Miami doesn't go and get a little rub and tug from a 13-year-old girl, or, hey, if I give you an extra $100, like, he's perpetuating that market. And so we just have to be better people. Until then, we'll never be able to stop it.
Well, I imagine that changing laws to make it less of a penalty in the state of California doesn't really help the cause. So
that does not.
Yeah.
No.
It's a shame, man.
Yep.
Wow.
Man, these are deep topics.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm curious, man. You're unapologetically honest and real. And that's something that you don't get. So when I have, the opportunity to have these types of conversations, I like to challenge my own thinking. I like to, challenge other people's way of thinking and put out the information that maybe they're afraid to go seeking for themselves in a lot of cases. There's a lot of nonchalant surface level crap out there,
Yeah. It's a weird time when somebody that just speaks honestly is a rare thing. Like, how is that? Where that was a rhetorical question, because I realized that for a lot of people, if they try to answer something honestly, they could lose their jobs. Numerous people that tweeted all lives matter were viewed as racist and fired. While I believe Black lives matter, I also think little brown lives matter and little white lives matter. And I believe that all life matters. Like, the motto of my company is to preserve and protect human life. It doesn't specify what kind of life. Like, it doesn't say, well, unless you have Down syndrome, then your life doesn't matter, or unless you have Alzheimer's, then you're just too old and your brain's useless. We should just go ahead and kill you now. It doesn't say that. It just says preserve and protect human life. That's what we stand by. But the cancel culture is so compelling and powerful now, where you say the wrong thing, even if it's not the truth, and it's not the truth, you still have to say and perpetuate the lie. Otherwise, you're going to be judged by this idiotic collective. Like, I love the word idiocracy right now, because the definition of it is it's a group of people that are doing stupid things. And that's what we are doing. Like, we have a community, especially online, of people that are just being dumb and allowing, and some of us are being complicit because we have to play along with it out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
They call that group the silent majority, because we are like, oh wait, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to wait, and hopefully the tide will change, or maybe I'll just try to fix it in my private ballot booth. But by us not standing up and saying the right thing and saying truth and saying, no, pedophilia is wrong. No, sex trafficking is wrong, and we can all agree on that. No, you're like, what does the Constitution say? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, prohibiting free exercise thereof, abridging the freedom of speech, the press, or the right of people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government and to redress grievances. Okay, that does not say looting, rioting, burning, assaulting, battery. It doesn't say any of those things. So we can specifically not say protesting, because the moment you throw a brick, the moment you light a building on fire, you're not protected by this anymore, and you have broken the law. So we have to stand up and start using words. Like, words have been weaponized, and we have allowed it to happen. And the fact that somebody could sit there and say all lives matter, and they lose their job over it, but all lives do matter, to include Black lives. And we're a complex society in the 21st century. I think we've evolved enough where we can say, yes, there's a problem maybe with even the system in some urban communities that we have to address, that it makes it very difficult for Blacks in Chicago, in Baltimore, in Detroit to rise above whatever socioeconomic level they were at, that they were born at, or their parents were at, and they've been there for the past 2 generations. Okay, I can say that that's a problem, and let's figure out a way to address it. And I can also say that that recent kid that was just born with Down syndrome, whose color of his skin doesn't matter, I also think his life matters.
Yeah, and I hope that's what podcasts bring to the world. That the long form, because you mentioned it early on, right? Ideas, the battlefield of ideas, is where the positivity is going to come from. Because bad ideas are going to lose, good ideas are going to win. When you turn on, just your television set, you don't see that. You see curated messages. I watched Don Lemon and Sanjay Gupta on television the other night, and it was so obvious. I saw it coming. It's like, okay, you're setting it up. And then it was like this big graph that showed it was about the flu pandemic of, the early 1900s. And like, here was the first wave. And then everybody listened for 4 months and it got better. And then everybody stopped listening. And there was this horrible peak. And they were just so trying to scare everybody into their way of thinking. And nobody's there contradicting that. They're allowed to speak with no interruptions. And what I don't know. I mean, probably 80-90% of the people that tune into that take it as fact and then go and regurgitate that. So for me, like having these conversations, and I've had a few with others that, I've left and been like, okay, I have to rethink. Maybe I'm not as educated. Maybe I'm misinformed. But regardless, these types of conversations, if enough people are having them and enough of this content is getting out there and not censored so that people can see it, I would hope that it slowly starts to reshape how we are as a society, maybe what we understand to be true and not true. I don't know. I mean, that's maybe wishful thinking, but I don't know another way to make it happen.
No, yeah, you have to converse, right? You can't silence a side. You can't. The art of listening is something that's been lost, and I think you have to have a confident person with a certain degree of developed interpersonal skills to sit across from somebody that you disagree with and listen to their side and listen to their perspective. And I love being challenged about my viewpoints. I realize that the lens that I view this world through is not similar to a lot of people because I have some pretty extraordinary experiences, and I definitely see the underbelly of society, like the real darkness that slids and slithers along the ground. And with that, I have to be challenged constantly about like, no, most people are good. You just have to deal with a lot of bad ones. But I also have to challenge people where like, yes, you live in suburbia. You go to a job with a 9 to 5 and your kids go to soccer, this awesome soccer camp. And then they go to like this nice little fancy league and you guys have access to swimming pools. Like, guess what? I go to places where none of those things exist. And I have to be the bearer of bad news that there is this group in this world that are inherently evil and will do anything to bring your world crumbling down. But the only way to bring that out, to your point, is to talk and to listen. That's the other part of talking. Conversation is two sides, right? One's listening, one's talking, exchanging ideas, cross-pollination of thoughts, and Yahtzee. We come to something real.
Yeah, it's funny because, as much as I would love to be in front of you, shake your hand, have a proper handshake and be in person, this just doesn't feel quite right. But this whole Zoom experience over the last couple of months, it's actually helped me. If I can say there's a silver lining, it's helped me with the listening because almost by default, you have to allow everybody to speak so that you're not talking over each other. And I've found myself a few times biting my tongue saying, no, I want this to sound good. And then actually I took something from what the person said that I wouldn't have if I would have just quickly given my opinion on something that I thought that I knew. And so that's been a help for me, if I've gotten anything out of it. But it's interesting you bring that point up because most people are listening for the break in the noise so that they can then speak.
Yeah, but they're never listening.
No.
Like if somebody could walk away from our conversation today, it's like, be a better listener. What does that mean? You have to not only use your ears, obviously, and and absorb the words that they're saying. But then you have to think about those words and what they mean, and then maybe even how to apply them, and what it would look like to just change heads for a second. Like, take that person that you're listening to and you're just like, ah, man, this disgusting, I'm just gonna be devil's advocate right now, like this mega red hatted, is that what is it, magma, make America, anyways, the red hat with the white letters, right? Like, this person's wearing this hat, this guy's automatically a racist, and everything that comes out of his mouth is bigotry, and like, what a horrible person this stupid, uneducated, probably illiterate person is. And then just stop there for a second, and then listen to their words, and then imagine being in their life and shaped those ideas. And inversely, that poor kid in Portland, right? He has bad skin. He has bad hair. He looks like he's been sleeping under a bridge for the past 2 years. Maybe he has. That conservative that's like, those disgusting Antifa. Like, before you throw a stone, maybe try to walk a mile in that poor kid's shoes, and think about him living bridge, which he probably has for the past 2 years, when he graduated with a degree that he couldn't find a job in, and he was so rooted and indoctrinated in these ideas in this really progressive university that he went to. And then he realizes that's not the real world, and now he doesn't know what to do. He's been poorly educated, he's been poorly prepared, and now he's in a poor position to face the reality of this world. But you're going to sit there and judge him because he doesn't agree with your ideas. In both of these instances, there's no common ground, and there's no commonality, and there's no place for somebody to listen. So all we have to do, zip it and listen.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate it a ton, Tim. It was a really good time, and I'll definitely take you up on that pocket constitution. And
yeah, right here. What do you want written in it?
Oh man, whatever you want. I think I'll leave that one to you. Make it more memorable for me. And I know you're a coffee drinker, so I'll if you don't mind, I don't know how you take it, if you're a whole bean ground or a K-cup guy, but I'll have some coffee.
I'm not going to even dignify that question with a response.
You're a whole bean guy?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll get you some whole bean coffee. I'll get it over to On It. You can snag it up and let us know what you think. I know you appreciate good coffee, so
you're gonna have to find where I write in here.
Okay, deal. That's fair.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.